Let me just go to our next item on the list. Oh, I'm in.
Well, speaking of abusive proceedings, we warned that the Alex Jones template was going to be the template for Trump. Now we've seen it in live time. But what they are doing, trying to do to Amos Miller in Pennsylvania should terrify everybody.
So we've talked about it. I think people understand, but for those who don't, Amos Miller is an Amish farmer who was basically attacked by the feds for selling meat without complying with FDA regulations. Selling it he crossed state lines with meat, not an AK-47 with a tomahawk ribeye. And then he was recently raided by the state, Pennsylvania state, for saying that he's selling stuff without having gotten the requisite license. They basically seized some assets and you can't sell, you can't eat, you can't use it yourself. That was about a few weeks ago. And you are representing him. What's the latest, Robert?
So this past week, they filed suit in state court. More lies. They are seeking a permanent injunction to prohibit Amos Miller from ever being able to give his meat, his poultry, his dairy to the customers who need it, to his members. And even it's not clear. There's aspects of the order that seem to suggest they would like to prohibit him from being able to feed his own family, is what the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture would want. Prohibit owners of a farm from feeding themselves, and they have the ongoing right to inspect anybody's fridge anytime they want under the scale of the order that they're seeking with Amos, to be able to find out all their associates, affiliates, any individuals that have ever wanted his products, in which they have their own independent First Amendment rights. And then, unsatisfied with that ludicrous demand, they went in ex parte to the judge and got the judge to immediately stop for a month Amos from producing any raw milk products, including in states that are outside of Pennsylvania that they don't even have the authority over, and prohibiting him from distributing it to anybody effectively. And they did so once again because it's what the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture does well, by lying to the state court judge.
Stop there. I know none of the details here, and I'm going to ask you the obvious question. Ex parte means they had to show some urgency to justify not even calling the defendant or the adverse party. So they're going to say it's a health emergency. If he sells milk to Wyoming, he'll poison people and kill them. And they need to go ex parte because if they notify him, he's going to go destroy the milk, hypothetically?
No, he would sell it. And that's where they lied. That's why, because what happened was they notified me a week ago that they had concerns with one. So they seize everything. They sample a bunch of stuff, and they only come back with a small amount of listeria, as far as I can tell, because they don't tell me how much. But my guess is if it was a lot, they would have told me. Because they lie by omission. It's their favorite way to lie, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And they're clearly so comfortable and at ease lying to judges. We're going to find out whether Pennsylvania judges have the backbone to what happens if government officials lie to them. Because I know those judges have, judges in general have no problem whacking defense lawyers who misrepresent things or screw up. Here, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture repeatedly, flagrantly, openly lies by omission and commission, because once the state of Pennsylvania said last week, or maybe the week before, hey, by the way, we found listeria in one sample. It's what Amos did is he completely shut down his raw milk operation, just shut it down, and wasn't selling anybody. They knew that because it was published on his site by order of Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, not selling raw milk or raw milk products. So how do you get a temporary injunction? How do you claim, hey, judge, he's still selling it, when he's not? And in fact, they don't affirmatively allege he is. They just don't tell the judge about that. Instead, they say, hey, we told him about this risk. And the very next paragraph is, Mr. Barnes says his food products are great. Hence, hey, judge, he must be still selling it.
But that might explain a judge coming to that conclusion on the merits, not an ex parte. So even selling, if you go ex
because
parte,
the judge trusted the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, which was his big mistake. He trusted a bunch of lying rogues. This is the most lying, deceitful agency I've ever dealt with, and I deal with the IRS on a daily basis. So that's how bad the Pennsylvania and the lawyers for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture lie repeatedly. Heather Kelly and the other ones up there lie repeatedly at the Attorney General's office. They've lied to me and they lie to judges because they knew he had shut down operations. There was no basis whatsoever for any temporary injunction to issue, to seize and stop things that are not even inside their state. There's no basis for it. They knew there was no basis for it, so they lied and tricked the judge to get. And while I was in the hospital, couldn't hold an emergency hearing because of that. Only reason why. And so what should have happened is
a continuance.
The judges needed to be skeptical, but they're not. The Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture blows a leaf across their desk and they sign it. And it's embarrassing on the Pennsylvania court system.
Robert.
So and I get it why they trust them. They just don't realize the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture cannot be trusted in cases involving Amos Miller.
Hold on. I might have missed one portion when I went to let that freaking annoying dog out of my office. You're in the hospital and they proceed ex parte on an urgent basis because
they proceeded ex parte before I was in the hospital.
Okay.
They did so without notifying me.
Yeah, well, that's
you can have a hearing on Friday, but the Friday I'm in the hospital.
Okay, so because the ex parte before you're in the hospital is even more egregious because they know that they're represented. Ex parte, as far as my legal experience ever went,
they made no effort. They could have said, "Hey, here's our concern. We're gonna request ex parte relief unless you agree to this, or you tell us this, or you or do you have time to hold the hearing Thursday morning, Friday, etc." They did none of that because they're lying, dishonorable, disreputable, unprofessional frauds at the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania. They refuse to respect basic rules of ethics, basic rules of civil conduct, basic rules of law, basic rules of decorum, basic rules of justice. And we're going to find out whether the Pennsylvania courts have the integrity and the courage to do something about it. I'm going to be dealing with that on the hearing that is now scheduled for February 29th. So the judge didn't have any available time before that, before the last week of February.
So meanwhile, though, in the interim, he can no longer sell.
He can't sell any raw milk products at all. He's completely frozen. I mean, so not only that, he has to dump out all the milk products he has. I mean, you're talking about and not only Amos is and Pennsylvania knew this. He was a distributor. There's a bunch of Amish farmers that work with him, and they know this. So it's a hit on the whole Amish community, right? All of a sudden, everybody is out of money for a month or more. And they're trying to put them all out of business forever. I mean, that's what their ultimate objective is. They're overt and open about it. Permanent injunction, prohibit him from from selling anything, from giving anything. And the order's so broad, it could be misconstrued to mean, that you can't even feed yourself. That if you're an owner of a farm, you can't even feed yourself. You can't even feed your family. You can't even give it away. That's how nuts the power they're asserting here. That's why the Amos Miller case is the future of food freedom in America. This case will likely decide that. That's how critical and essential this case is. I've added people to my legal team just that are prioritizing this case. That's how significant it is. Bringing together experts, fact witnesses. I have a forensic investigator that's just working on the facts related to this case. Because the other backstory is they lie. They repeat an old lie that said listeria in Amos Miller's milk caused. Here's the extraordinary thing. They the Amos Miller has served his products tens of thousands of Americans.
Well, for
over
years,
20
for decades.
Yeah, for decades. You're talking about millions and millions of products eaten and consumed. And you know how many customer complaints any state or federal agency has?
At the risk of having this taken out of context, 0, Robert.
Imagine that. Imagine you having served tens of thousands of people with millions of food products. And food is inherently, some people that don't react well to certain kinds of food.
Well,
I mean, normally the
not
average complaint rate is 3%.
I was going to say, ordinarily, some people will drink too much while they eat and then blame it on the food and not the alcohol. I mean, it's crazy.
All kinds of things can go wrong. Amos Miller has 0 customer complaints in more than 20 years. He has the safest record of food in the history of America.
He's the best example to make, Robert. They'll try to shut him down, and then everyone who has at least.
And then, like, one of the lies they said is there's this that his listeria caused someone to get sick and died back in 2016. Here's the problem: the relatives, the family, they say that's a lie. They say that's not true. They say their grandmother who died had severe cancer and she never even drank raw milk anyway. So it's completely made up. And the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is still repeating that lie because that's what they are, lying frauds who want to steal all of our rights to go. It goes into our bodies, which belong to us, not the federal government, not the state government.
It's the wrap-up smear, Robert. They're going to report on somebody reporting it and make it fact and then use it as the example to do what they want to do. Meanwhile,
by the way, we even did Amos wanted to make sure everything was super safe anyway. And I identified where there was any risk coming from any other farmer of any other product that he was out there and addressed it right away. So they know that there's nothing in there, nothing that he makes on his own farm that's risk to anybody. They know that. Like that, they claimed other things that cause sickness. They weren't able to confirm any of it from any of the evidence they've sent me so far. So, but that's what they want to do. And so this case is going to be, and we're going to raise every constitutional issue. Not only expose all of their lies and their litany of lies, but constitutionally, they have no business telling family farmers what food they can feed themselves and their family. The number that if you're an owner of a farm, you have a right to eat your own food without the government telling you whether you can or not. Number 2, that private members of an association or any other form don't even have to have private members. If you are a direct purchaser of traditional foods such as meat, poultry, and dairy directly from a farmer, it should be recognized in law that you have a constitutional right
to buy what you want.
Absolutely. To go decide what goes into your body. That informed consent is about you, not the government. It's informed consent, not uninformed control. That's what they want. They want uninformed control over what goes into your body. They want you eating the crap that corporatized, industrialized agriculture has been feeding us and killing us for the last half century with. They don't want the higher quality, better, safer Amish lifestyle of food available to the rest of us, even though it's shrunk. I mean, they went from 1 out of 5 food products a century ago to today. Direct, small independent farmers like Amos only produce about 2% of all of our food supply. I mean, it's dangerous for national security that we're allowing this to happen. But these corporate whores at the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, who when they leave, guess who they go to work for? Most of them have never worked an actual farm in their lives. They have no idea how to govern a farm. The idea that you have these people in lab coats telling farmers how they need to farm is itself a crock. But what they do is they go and work for the same big corporations. I mean, I'm going to document that they've had real outbreaks in Pennsylvania, and the PDA is usually covering them up for big corporations and is also usually and has never requested this kind of relief against actual pathogen outbreak causing food supplies from its big corporate pals. So we're going to put all of it on trial. Your constitutional rights to eat what you want. Your constitution, that's a liberty interest. Your constitutional property interest as an owner of any food supply that you get to decide whether it goes into your body or not some government bureaucrat. Get into the constitutional limitations on the power of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and its various First and Fourth Amendment violations. They have no entitlement constitutionally to know anybody who buys his food. That's an attempt to violate their First Amendment rights. They have no business doing that. They have no right to do so, no privilege or prerogative to do so. So this constitutionally violating agency needs to be restrained and restricted by a constitutionally honoring court. And then we'll get into the factual history. We'll get into the economic significance. There's people literally emotionally upset that they cannot get his food because they need it for their kids or family members or themselves with certain conditions that require the food made the way he makes it. You know what they don't want? They don't want any food that says PDA approved on it. That's the one, FDA approved, USDA approved, because that means the food sucks. That's what that means to a lot of people in America with food knowledge. And PDA can't even understand. Mr. Barnes is out there saying the Amish food is better than our PDA approved food. Well, look at all the fat asses in your office. Look at your office. Look around. Does anybody think the PDA bureaucracy is a beacon of physical health? Nobody in their right minds does. Look at what's happening in America. Look at our life expectancy declining. So they're trying to strip us of one of our last areas of sovereignty. And I, for one, am not going for it. And Amos Miller is willing to take the brunt of all of this. While this is going on, the pressure is put on his family and everybody else. So there's a Give, Send, Go that's out there where you can find for Amos Miller. Continue to support it because it's the only thing that's going to keep them afloat economically while they try to bankrupt them over the next month. And we're doing this on an extremely discounted legal fees. We'll have some Free America Law Center fundraisers for it down the road because we're going to be doing, $250,000 of legal work in about a month, given all the scale we're bringing to this. But the February 29th hearing in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, will be a case that could shape the future of food freedom for all of us in America.
Robert, it's the Give, Send, Go. I'll show that. It's Amos Miller under attack again, correct?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna show that in a second. But right now, I'm gonna show this because I need to pull this up. This is from the Food Safety News. I don't know. Miller further must notify his customers that his products were traced to 2 recent foodborne illnesses. Furthermore, the judge ordered him to notify his customers.
Which, by the way, is not really accurate. So to my knowledge, all the food that they have sampled there didn't tie him in to any foodborne illness anywhere. Put it this way, if that's true, they haven't produced the evidence, and it seems mighty weird that they haven't.
Okay. And I'm gonna
but again, even if it were so, it's like, okay, you're talking about tens of thousands, right? And you got 2 incidents? 2 incidents? That happens every hour, probably, with certain Tyson Foods products.
But no, hold on, Robert, because I'll bring in the more incriminating part. If we're going to go to Pennsylvania, here we go. Miller was the defendant in the federal action in 2016. Yada yada. Miller's milk in 2016 was found to be genetically similar. I don't even know what the hell this means. I'm sorry. Miller's milk,
and that's the fake case. And I say it's a fake case because in the death case, that's where her own family said she didn't even drink any raw milk from anybody. So, like, how could Miller's raw milk cause that? And by the way, she had a certain late stage cancer. What's the backstory? I mean, it reminded me, they test ran like some of the nonsense they pulled in COVID. They've been testing it in some of these cases. And what they're doing is they're trying to fearmonger about the small farmer. And it's like, hold on a second. You look at the food problems created every single day by corporatized, industrialized agriculture. Their people are getting sick every single day from it. Direct reaction. Then that's not even dealing with the long-term sicknesses. The massive explosion, as Robert Kennedy talks about, of chronic disease. I mean, they're literally killing us. And you don't have to be an Alex Jones, so-called Alex Jones, in order to recognize, look at the data. They're killing us with this crap food. and they're trying to take away one of our only healthy options. Is it perfectly healthy? No food is, but it's a lot more healthy than anything produced by corporatized, industrialized agriculture, as the fact that he has zero customer complaints from millions of products of over tens of thousands of Americans in the last 20 years.
Robert, I'm just gonna make sure that we're on the same one here. And yes, this is a humble flex, people. I will tell you what I'm humble flexing. I'm not in it because I'm not sharing it. Here we go. This is the fundraiser, correct?
Yes.
Amos. So I'm just saying, people, right now, I put my money where my mouth is, and it's right there in real time. Robert, sweet, merciful goodness, I'm going to share the link with everybody so they can do not the same, but whatever they can. And I'm going to take this out if I can get back to Rumble Studio. Here we go. Boom. Robert, I'll say Godspeed to you, but I know you. So I'll talk to you tomorrow and I'll find out where this is going. What's the next step in Amos Miller's saga?
So, yeah, it's the big hearing on February 29th, the afternoon in Lancaster County Courthouse room, I think 6, I think is where it'll be. I'm not sure if that part is set yet. The judge is set. The judge has a pretty independent background. Seems like a straight up guy. I mean, I assume he just accepted the veracity of the claims made. Put it this way. The signs that the judge is an independent judge is that they had to lie to him in the first place.
Yep.
So they could have been honest and said, look, here's what we have. We have these facts. We haven't informed Mr. Barnes of this request. That yes, Mr. Miller has published statements saying he stopped producing any of this and stopped selling it and so forth. Yet they didn't, and they lied for a reason. They were worried that an honest and honorable judge would not sign this kind of declaration or emergency injunctive order if they had been truthful. And again, this includes misrepresentations by the Attorney General's office of the state of Pennsylvania itself. And I am going to be bringing that to their attention. There are other people, including Free America Law Center itself, who has members that have standing, and some others that may be adding to the case because people's property was seized other than Amos's in violation of the law. Again, Pennsylvania was asserting control over things that Amos isn't even in control over outside of the state of Pennsylvania. So Amos not in control outside of the state, violating their rights, violating their constitutional rights. They're going to look at civil rights actions. Individuals who have been denied access to this food in essential ways that impacts their health, they're going to be looking at legal action against the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Some of the individuals who have lied are going to be individually named and sued in the state of Pennsylvania. So this is going to be one of the biggest legal battles over food freedom, and it's time that we need our courts to respect our rights, and we're going to find out whether that happens. And then there need to be consequences for rogue agencies like the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and then ultimately there needs to be legislative reform. What most Americans don't know is that until 1967, our laws always included a provision that said none of the inspection, regulatory, bureaucratized regime to govern any aspect of food applied if you were buying your food directly from the farmer. That it is as American. I'll finish with this. A wise man once said, if the government can control your diet, and this is paraphrasing, then you are nothing more than a chattel slave of the state. And that is as core a right as any. And that man was President Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence. That's what's being put at test in Pennsylvania, and not far from where that Liberty Bell is cracked still in Philadelphia. We're going to find out whether liberty can still be wrung out in Pennsylvania in the case of Amos Miller.